Now, these were wild times for CONCACAF, as now the best of Central America, the Caribbeans, and North America would finally compete with each other for the regional championship, as well as continue to fight for a spot for the World Cup. So, for example, from the 1963 to 1972, CONCACAF held 5 CONCACAF championships and 2 World Cup qualifiers. They also hosted the World Cup for the very first time. In 1963, CONCACAF hosted its first CONCACAF championship. Hold on, I lost my notes. Oh yeah. It was held in El Salvador. There was a qualifying mini tournament between Haiti and Netherlands Antilles, in which Haiti won and joined the tournament. There were 2 groups, and the top 2 of each would go on to the final round. Group A was Honduras, El Salvador, Panama, Guatemala, and Nicaragua. Group B, there was Costa Rica, Netherlands Antilles, Mexico, and Jamaica. Honduras and El Salvador, as well as Costa Rica and Netherlands Antilles, qualified from their respective groups. For the final round, the team to end at the top of the table would be crowned the champion. And Costa Rica ended up doing just that, as it became the first nation to win an official CONCACAF tournament. The second edition was in 1965. It was hosted by Guatemala. This tournament had zone qualifiers and then a single table in which the top team would win the tournament. The qualifiers for the Central Zone had El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Honduras face each other, which El Salvador would end up topping the group and qualifying to the tournament. The North Zone qualifiers were between Mexico and the U.S., but the U.S. withdrew, giving Mexico a bye to the tournament. And then for the Caribbean Zone, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, and Dominican Republic all withdrew because the matches clashed with the qualifiers of the World Cup for 1966, meaning Haiti and Netherlands Antilles qualified automatically to the final tournament. There was also beef between Guatemala and Cuba on the political side, because Guatemala was refusing entry to Cuba. And that story is for another day, at least on this channel. The final round then consisted of Mexico, El Salvador, Haiti, Netherlands Antilles, Costa Rica as defending champions, and Guatemala as the host nation. Mexico ultimately was the one to come out at the top and win its first CONCACAF championship. The 1966 World Cup qualifiers continued a similar structure from that of the 1962 World Cup qualifiers. There would be 3 groups of 3 in the first round, with the top team of each group moving on to the final round. It was also the first time that CONCACAF deliberately did not separate the groups by zones and instead actually mixed up the groups. Group 1 had Mexico, the US, and Honduras. Group 2 had Jamaica, Netherlands Antilles, and Cuba. Group 3 had Costa Rica, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. Mexico, Jamaica, and Costa Rica would win their respective groups and move on to the final round. And in the end, the current CONCACAF champion, Mexico, ended up winning the sole ticket to the World Cup. Mexico submitted a bid to host the 1970 World Cup. On October 8, 1964, Mexico was selected to host the tournament, giving Mexico an automatic qualification to the 1970 World Cup and making them the first CONCACAF nation to host the World Cup, the biggest soccer, football tournament in all of this planet. But before I talk about the 1970 World Cup qualifiers, I need to talk about the 1967 CONCACAF championships because I am keeping myself on a timeline. So this tournament was a single table tournament, and it consisted of Honduras as host nation, Mexico as the defending champions, alongside Guatemala, Trinidad and Tobago, Haiti, and Nicaragua, who each qualified to the tournament through a qualification tournament, which I'm not going to talk about because that strays away from the actual competition. So I don't think I'm going to be doing that for the rest of the CONCACAF championships. Let's see, where was I? Yeah, the winner was going to be whoever ended up on top of the table. That would come to be in the form of Guatemala, who would win its only CONCACAF major tournament as of this video release. And then the 1969 CONCACAF Championship was hosted by Costa Rica. It followed the same format as the previous edition, and it was joined by defending champions Guatemala, alongside Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Mexico, and Netherlands Antilles, who all won their qualification process. Costa Rica would win the tournament after ending up on top of the table and achieve its second title. Then the 1970 World Cup was coming up, and CONCACAF held its qualifiers. With Mexico already qualified automatically as host, they had one more spot that could go for CONCACAF. And so the CONCACAF qualifiers were divided into 3 rounds. The first round was 4 groups of 3, in which each team to top their group would go to the second round. The second round consisted of 2 groups of 2, in which the winner of each series would advance to the final round and face each other for the sole ticket to the World Cup. El Salvador would win the CONCACAF spot after topping their group in the first round, having to play 3 matches against Honduras, in which the famous football war happened. You can look that up. Other people on YouTube and even on Google have talked about it. I'm not going to talk about it, at least on this video. I probably will in another one. So yeah. In the final round, El Salvador would beat Haiti, once again after 3 matches. At the World Cup, Mexico achieved their best performance when they achieved a quarterfinal finish, while El Salvador finished last in group stage. The 1971 CONCACAF Championship was hosted by Trinidad and Tobago. There were many qualifications for this tournament, and ultimately the host nation was joined by Costa Rica as the defending champions, alongside Haiti, Mexico, Cuba, and Honduras. In the end, Mexico would end up on top of the table and win its second CONCACAF title, tying Costa Rica. And then starting from the 1973 CONCACAF Championship until the 1989 edition, it was held every 4 years instead of the 2 years, as it was now going to serve as qualifiers for whatever World Cup seemed to be coming up. And that's why I divided these tournaments into 2 sections. And the second section is going to be on the next video, so stick around if you're still following here for some reason. Yeah. Alright, bye.